Goods. Do you import or export goods? Do you go across hard borders? If so, can you get trusted trader status? Can you outsource to a freight forwarder? Have you gotten an EORI number? It's a really snappy title, which is Economic Operator Registration Identification Number. Effectively, it's like a VAT number for import and export. Takes about 5 to 10 minutes to apply for one on the HMRC website, and the longest delays are 5 days. So it's still possible to get that registration number. So there's still planning that can be done. I think the unintended consequence, and I'll labour this a bit more on the next slide, is supply chains. You know, knock-on effect. You might get everything lined up, but has everybody in your supply chain done that? And particularly upstream, you know. So there'll be people in your supply chain that don't even know they're in a supply chain sometimes. So it could have an effect. Money. Do you transfer money across hard borders? You know, do you make payments into Europe? Do you receive payments out of Europe? In theory, shouldn't be affected. Unintended consequence there is the electronic transfer rules. So they would drop away automatically on a hard Brexit. And some banks aren't recognised in some EU states. So you'd have to make sure that either your bank is recognised so you can continue with the electronic transfer, or get another bank account so that you know the transfers can happen. Probably the kind of knock-on effect more likely to be on consumers travelling rather than business. You know, you could literally go on holiday and find your credit card doesn't work or your debit card doesn't work. Services, again, it should be relatively straightforward, not really affected by this. Questions like, do you have people travelling? If you do, have they got the correct visas? There'll be some people in the audience as old as me who remember having to get a visa to go on holiday to Spain before we joined the EU. And that sort of thing probably comes back in again. Are you taking equipment? So this is a live example that we've got manufacturers with high-end engineering equipment in France, and they send their engineers across the border to service that equipment. And the French now, even though nothing has actually happened, are stopping those vehicles and questioning whether the specialist equipment in the vehicle is an import or an export, and does it need a declaration, and all of that sort of thing. So I think the unintended consequence of sending engineers across the border is medical insurance, because you'd lose the blue card. So, you know, God forbid you send one of your employees across a hard border, they have an accident, they're not automatically entitled to medical treatment anymore, and then you'll get the knock-on effects of, should you have insured them? Should they have insured themselves? What does the contract of employment say? Again, could be a little bit messy. But point I'm making is always start with the same basic assessment. Take the worst case baseline, look what it removes, and assess whether it's going to impact on you. And the packs that we'll hand out at the end, we've distilled it to the most basic questionnaire, 15 questions. Now, that's not meant to be simplistic or patronising. It's meant to demonstrate that there's too much noise, there's too much white noise, and you can break it back down to the basics. But basic advice is, if you've got a lot of yes answers, you need a plan and you need a contingency. If you've got a lot of no answers, you've probably got time.